just a few welcomes. Traditionally, we've always done these webinars, and we have done quite a few since March 2020, but we've always done them in partnership with the local business improvement districts. And I'm very pleased that we have representatives here today from both the South Wimbledon business area, that's Claire Morris, and also the new Chief Executive of the Love Wimbledon Business Improvement Business, Craig Hurring, and his colleague is also here, Jennifer Waters. It also here, or meant to be here, I don't know if she's in the room yet, we have Sarah Xavier, who is from the Future Merton team in Merton Council. That's the team that is responsible for business. So again, any Q&A, if you like to put that in the chat, then we can get that addressed as well. But our main speaker today, by return invite, David has been great in working with us on bringing this information to you verbally rather than having to interpret what are often quite complex government guidelines that councils actually have to interpret. But David is the head of grants and benefits at the council, so he's responsible for business rates and these grants and also council tax. And he's going to take us through the grants. So I'm going to pass over to David. We're going to do them one by one. There are two that are very closely associated. So we'll do them in chunks. And then, as I say, if you put your questions in the chat as we go through, and then we'll take those when David's done his outline. So David, over to you. Welcome, and take us through it, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Morning, everybody. Yeah, so as Diana says, I'm just going to go through three new schemes that were introduced by the government just prior to Christmas. Two of them are grant schemes, so we're going to be giving out grant payments, cash payments. The third one, which I'll leave until last, is a business rate reduction scheme, so a reduction on the business rates bill. So if we start with the first two schemes, because they're quite interlinked, and we purposely made that. Now, one of the schemes is a government scheme. So it's called the Omicron Hospitality and Leisure Grant. And it's aimed at business rates payers only. And the level of grant is based on your rateable value. As I say, hospitality and leisure, and it's a grant, it's an application-based grant, so you have to apply, you have to provide us with certain information, but it's aimed at the hospitality sector, so bars, restaurants, pubs, cafes, etc. Although there's a difference between cafes and kiosks. Kiosks aren't eligible. Then the leisure sector, cinemas, theatres, wedding venues, nightclubs, concert halls, theme parks, soft play centres, clubs and institutions. And again, when it comes to clubs and institutions that fall under leisure, there's it's not totally clear. And I'm going to give an example of sports clubs. So initially, we were looking at sports clubs thinking that they were eligible, discussed it with two neighbouring boroughs, and all three of us are doing it slightly differently. So we're trying to get some clarity from the government on the actual rules regarding sports clubs and whether they're eligible for the Omicron grant. If they're not eligible for the Omicron grant, then what Merton will do is they'll make sure that they're eligible for the discretionary grant. I suppose what I'm trying to get at is the complexity around the guidance that we receive to administer these grants. And then under the accommodation sector of this grant, things like hotels, guest house, not that there's many holiday apartments in Merton, boarding houses, bed and breakfast, things like that. As I said, this is an application-based grant, so everybody has to apply. They have to. You will have to provide certain information that we're required to collect for the government. We've tried to make it as simple as we can. The one difference with all of the grant schemes this time is that the government require more detailed prepayment checking. I mean, I'm sure you may have seen on the news recently about, and the press about the amount of fraud that's gone on with some of these government grant and loan schemes. So this time the government seemed to be tightening down on prepayment checking. So we have to validate every company that applies, and we have to do a validation on their bank account details when they apply. So this is actually going to delay the time it's going to take us to get these actual grant payments out once we determine that somebody's qualifies for the grant. The levels of the grant for these, if your rateable value is below 15,000, the grant is 2,667. If the rateable value is between 15,000 and 51,000, the grant is £4,000. And if your rateable value is over 51,000, it's a £6,000 grant. So it's the Omicron Hospitality and Leisure Grant. It's a government grant. The closing date for this grant is the 18th of March, and we have to make all payments by the 31st of March. Okay, so we cannot accept any applications after the 18th of March. The government have been quite clear on that, and we cannot make any payments after the 31st of March. So that's the government run scheme, and there's no limit. So they've given us some funding for that, but if the business is eligible, we'll pay it. Even if we go over that funding, they will reimburse the council. So there's no cash or funding limit on that grant. So if we now move on to the second grant scheme, and I'm just trying to pull it up on my screen here. This is another one of the government's additional restrictions grants. So it's a discretionary scheme. And as some of you may know, and some of you may well have received some grant money from us, this is a scheme that the local authority can determine itself, and it administers how it wants to administer, although the government do give some guidance on who or the types of businesses that they think should be eligible. So we've been given 481,000 for this scheme. Again, we have to make all payments by the 31st of March. We have to undertake this additional prepayment checking. What we've done is we've based our scheme on the government guidance, and that guidance can be found on our website. And we're targeting support at the following sectors. So hospitality again. So, okay, before I start, if you're eligible for the Omicron grant, the government grant, then you're not eligible for the ARG grant, for the discretionary grant, because they are quite similar. Hopefully you'll understand when I go through the detail. So we're looking at hospitality. We're looking at hospitality supply chain, leisure, personal care. So we've had lots of applications from hairdressers and barbers and things like that. Travel and tourism sector, wedding industries, nightclubs, events industries, wholesalers linked to hospitality and leisure, language schools, breweries, freelance and mobile businesses that link into the wedding and events industry, registered taxi and black drivers, and gyms. So gyms are excluded from the government Omicron grant. So as I say, this is a discretionary scheme, and we've only got a pot of money of 481,000. So what we've done is we've opened up an application window which closes on the 4th of February. So it's a 3-week application window, and it closes on the 4th of February. What we will then do is we will assess every application, and you know, we're already doing that already. And once we identify those that are eligible, we'll distribute the grant. And the way we're going to distribute the grant is it will be based on the grant amounts that I just detailed for the Omicron grant. So if your rateable value is below 15,000, your grant will be based on 2667. If you don't pay business rates and you pay rent, then we've calculated an equivalent rent level that equates to that 15,000 rateable value. If your rent level or your rateable value is up to 51,000, again, it will be 4,000, and then above the 51,000, it's 6,000. If you're a business that's operating from home and you fall into that criteria, it's a flat rate £500. So the plan is those are the set fees those are the set grants that we hope to give out. Now, the problem is if we get more grants than the funding that we've got, we will have to proportionately reduce those grants across everybody. Likewise, if we don't receive enough grants to use up all that funding, we'll proportionately increase the level of grants across everybody. So at the moment, and we've probably only got about a week left on this one, as I say, it closes on the 4th. I think our funding or our grant level based on those amounts is about £400,000. So, you know, and we've received a lot of grants. My guess is that we may exceed that 480,000. So businesses won't quite receive those grants that I've said, 6, 4, 2, 6, 6, 7, and 500, but we will have to proportionately reduce each one depending on how many extra grants we receive. But I don't think it will be that much less than that. So we're trying to tell businesses how much we think they'll get, but we're also putting in this sort of explanation that if we receive, we can't go over the £480,000. So if we do receive more grants, we won't exclude businesses that apply late. We'll just proportionately reduce everybody's grant down. As I say, that grant scheme closes on the 4th of February. So please, if you think you're eligible for that, apply for that one. I think I said again, we've got to do those prepayment checks, which we'll undertake, and we hope to get those payments out sort of by the 2nd or 3rd week in February. So those are the two grant-based schemes. As I say, they're fairly similar. We're trying to target the same types of businesses based on the government guidance. There are deadlines on applications on both. There's prepayment and there will be post-payment checking on both to ensure that businesses aren't making fraudulent claims. And the local authority, you know, we've tried to make it as simple as we can and as easy to apply as we can. We're not looking for financial evidence to see that you've had a reduction because of Omicron. We're just looking for a declaration. So as I say, we're trying to make it as simple as we can for you, but we do have to collect certain information. So Diana, that's the two grant schemes. So I'm happy to take any questions. If anybody has any questions they want to put in the chat, Sarah can try and answer them as well. I don't particularly want to give yes or no's on anybody asking, is my business going to get a grant and what grant will they get? You know, we can give an email address at the end that they can contact us on. As I say, the guidance in places isn't the clearest, so I don't want to commit to a business to say, yeah, you're going to get this, if when we look at the guidance and we look at the detail, they're not going to do that. I'd rather not be in that position.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we do have a selection of questions that have come in, so we will try and get through these relatively quickly if that's okay. Diana, are you happy for me to just read through some of these?
Well, I've just put some context on
okay.
the first one there, if I can, because the discretionary grant, David, is being asked whether it is the same pot of money. So I've said, no, it's a new pot of money.
Yeah.
And I think you've also clearly said it's not like the previous ones. One of the criteria was how much income you had lost. So that it is different level of criteria. So I don't know if that answers that. If there's anything else that you need to say on that, but that's basically it. So you'll have a process. So the other one that I think is there is about the Omicron grant and the discretionary grant. So you're doing, it seems to me you're doing applications for the discretionary grant in terms of the window of application before you do the deadline for the main Omicron grants. So it's where do you pitch your application, I think, is what people are asking.
Okay, right, sorry. Okay, so what we've done, and sorry, Diana, because I should have said this. What we've done with the Omicron grant is we've looked at the businesses in the borough based on our knowledge and based on what grants they've received previously. And if we think that they're eligible for the Omicron grant, we've contacted them, we've emailed them and advised them to apply. How that process works, and so there's two separate application forms on our website, one for the Omicron and one for the discretionary. If we think that a business is eligible for the Omicron, how that works is we will we will put a flag on their business rates account to say, yes, this company is entitled to the Omicron. When the company makes an application on the website, when they key in their business rates account number and their exact business rates name that links into the bill, the system sort of looks at the business rate system and says, yes, they're eligible for an Omicron, and it allows them to continue with their application. If you're a business that we haven't told that you're eligible for Omicron, but you think you are, and you try to make that application through the web form, it will look at the system, and because we've not recognised you as being eligible for it, it won't let you apply. So what we're saying is, if you think you're eligible for the Omicron and you've not had an email from us, then contact us. We will undertake that base assessment at the beginning. Yes, you're eligible. No, you're not. If you're eligible, we'll flag up your business rates account for the Omicron grant, and then you'll be able to successfully apply. If we're saying no, then we'll direct you to the discretionary, the ARG grant.
Lovely. So that's really, well, I think that's really important. So anyone that's running restaurants or cafes or hospitality establishments, if you haven't been notified, then if you think you are eligible, then you should write to the business rates team. So if Sarah could just
Sarah, can you put the email address on there, Sarah, please,
into the chat. So that's that. And the other thing that I kind of interpret is, if you're in the main Omicron grant, which is the clear government criteria, is really largely linked to rateable business rate premises. So you've got to be paying business rates really to get that. The discretionary grant, you've looked much at the more broader aspects, and particularly those that are supplying into the hospitality chain.
Absolutely.
As we know, have always been the overlooked.
Absolutely, Diana.
In the past. Okay.
Spot on.
Okay. So I think that's there. There's one question, very specific one, whether physiotherapy clinics fall within personal care, which you could maybe deal with that separately.
Yes, Sarah, I can't remember. Sarah, are you able to answer that one? Sorry. Oh, there you go. Sarah's just put the email address on the bottom.
Okay.
We'll come back to that one.
I've also come back to the query about physiotherapies and said, if they make an application online, we'll review their business, look at it, and get back to them and let them know if they're eligible.
So that would be the discretionary one, Diana. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Okay, so I think, Sophie, that covers all the questions, doesn't it?
It does. Sarah's actually done a great job in the box of answering some of those. So if you have put a question, have a little look in the chat box.
Okay. Thanks.
So I don't know if well, there's one about soft play and nursery.
Been answered. Sarah's got back to them.
Okay, all right. So I mean, those businesses that have put questions in the chat, I hope you're clear on them. If not, then obviously you've still got an opportunity to raise your question, or indeed email the business rates team, and they'll review that. Okay, because I think it is, I thought it was quite complex, which is why I wanted to do this webinar in terms of where your business falls naturally. So but I think what you've said there, David, about, you have contacted those that are in rateable business premises to say you believe they are eligible, and therefore that I think is a key first step. Okay.
Yeah, so, sorry, probably the most crucial bit, Diana, I missed it out, so apologies.
That's all right. That's why we do these webinars, David, because it helps those of us that are sort of representing businesses also get our heads around it. And I think it's really important for people to understand the deadline dates, and that the monies will be distributed by the end of March. So whatever money is coming to you, and as David has said, that will vary according to applications on the discretionary grant for sure, then that's the time frame that we're dealing with for you to receive the support monies. Okay, shall we move on then to the third one?
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is a broader grant, isn't it?
Yep. So this this scheme has a little bit more history. So this was actually announced back in March 21, when the government made an announcement that they were going to support businesses that they hadn't previously supported with business rates payments. And they'll allowed a pot of money that was going to be targeted to help their business rates bills. And we received the guidance just before Christmas. So as I said at the beginning, this is a scheme that will see a reduction to the business rates bill. It's not a cash payment, it's not a grant payment. Merton have been given 4.7 million, or just under 4.8 million, in fact, for this discretionary scheme. Now, as it's a discretionary scheme and it's 4.8 million, the council's constitution means that that scheme has to be agreed by councillors. So it has to be agreed by the cabinet. So we've devised a scheme that is going to the next cabinet meeting on the 7th of February. Now that scheme, if anybody wants to look at the actual detail of it, will be published on our website, or the proposed scheme will be published on our website, probably within about a week of that date. I think the council produces the agenda items, the reports, etc., about a week in advance of the cabinet meeting. So if anybody wants to look at the exact detail of the report and the policy, then that will be available quite soon. What we've done is, so again, whilst it's a discretionary scheme, the government have made a couple of stipulations. So this scheme is available only to businesses that haven't received any help with their business rates. So all of those businesses that receive the extended retail relief and continue to receive that retail and nursery relief are ineligible. So if you've had a reduction on your rates bill because you've met the extended retail, hospitality, leisure rates relief scheme or the nursery scheme, then you're not eligible for this reduction in your rates bill. So I guess this is the way that the government are saying that they're going to target those sectors, those businesses that haven't previously been helped. And Diana mentioned earlier, the hospitality supply chain. So what we've done is we've devised a scheme that excludes those, but it pretty much includes everybody else. So you have to be a ratepayer because it's a reduction in your rates bill. And we will invite applications. Again, we will have a 3-week window of applications. I think that will go live around about the 15th or 16th of February. So as I say, it has to go to cabinet on the 7th of February. And then there's, again, within the council's constitution, there's a 7-day call-in period where any councillor can challenge that decision. And there's a process you have to go to. So even if it's agreed on the 7th, I can't let that scheme go live straight away. I have to make sure that that period is covered. So we'll go live on or around the 15th, 16th of February with a 3-week window application. Again, we're not going to ask for financial evidence. We're going to ask for as limited information as we can. We will require copies of bank statements because the government insists on that. We'll look for evidence of trading, although all businesses are going to be a business rates payer, so that shouldn't be a problem. Then what we will do, once we've received all those applications, we will look at the total value of the businesses, the total value of the rateable values of all those businesses that have applied, and we'll fairly share out that £4.8 million on a percentage basis to all of those businesses. So, for example, if you're a business in an office and you've been affected by the pandemic and you've not been able to adapt, then you could be eligible for this grant, or you would be eligible for this grant. If you're in the hospitality supply chain, and Diana, as I say, you mentioned them earlier, they didn't get that relief last year on their business rates bill, you would be eligible for this. If you're a language school, you didn't get that relief last year, you'd be eligible for this. So it's a reduction on the rates bill for 21-22. We've got 4.7 million. I've done some rough calculations, and I think if everybody applied, which is very unlikely, if everybody applied, the reduction could be about 10 or 11%. So if everybody applies, the minimum reduction you're going to get on your rates bill is about 10 or 11%. Now, obviously, the fewer people that apply, the larger that reduction on your rates bill will be. A couple of things sort of leading off from that. As I say, the applications will just be open for 3 weeks, which takes us into probably the first or second week in March. Now, I know you're all going to hate to hear this, but early March, we look at sending out the new rates bills for next year. We look at sending out the new council tax bills for next year. And it's quite a busy period for us. So I'm not sure at this stage if we will be able to credit those business rates accounts before the end of the financial year. It just depends on the volume and the workload that we've got. As I say, it will be a reduction to the 21-22 business rates bill. If you're a business that's paid all of your business rates for 21-22, what we'll do is we'll transfer that credit or that reduction that we're going to have, so your account will go into credit, we'll transfer that credit into 22-23 and we'll adjust down your instalments that are due for next year's business rates. Again, we have to do we don't have to do it. I've got that on the brain, the prepayment checks. We don't, because it's a reduction to your rates bill. But we do have to gather certain information for the government. There are, as I say, there are some exclusions which will be clear in the policy. We're going to exclude advertised boardings. We're going to exclude mobile masks, things like that. The business has to be, it can't have been shut down. But pretty much anybody else that hasn't had any help will be eligible to apply. Okay, I think, Diana, I've covered everything on that. Sarah, if you can think of anything I've missed out, then either put a message or shout. But I'm happy to take any questions on that scheme.
Thank you, David. And I think most people in the room, apart from those that represent business improvement districts, wouldn't necessarily know that you charge business rates on inanimate objects like phone masts and advertising.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, no, it's a strange world.
Yeah.
So yeah, just so that's what David was referring to. But I think, so, you know, obviously we've all got to wait till that has gone to the council. The cabinet is called the cabinet, all the councillors that decide on this, which is on, I think, the 7th of February. So I know that we and South Wimbledon Business Area and Love Wimbledon will work to get that information out through our own communication channels. And obviously the council will be communicating that as well, because it is a short window of opportunity, I guess. So a couple of questions, which we've got some. So first of all, if you rent business premises, so you don't pay business rates, say you go to church halls and rent those, or is there any chance that you're eligible for any of this? No,
not for this one. Not for this one, Diana. It's you have to be a business rates payer. Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. So then the other thing, which so if you were to receive your business rates demand, if you like, for the year, and then you determine that business is then eligible for this reduction on their business rates, have you got a process of how that would work? Because will people have paid their business rates?
Yeah, so that's what I was. So I think what will happen, Diana, is some businesses will have paid for the year already, and some businesses won't have paid. So where they haven't paid, we'll reduce the amount that they need to pay for the year, and we'll send out a revised bill telling them what they have left to pay. Where those businesses have already paid, that when we apply that credit, that relief to their bill, it will put their bill in credit. So we'll transfer that credit onto next year's bill.
Right.
So that next year's bill will be reduced accordingly.
Right. So I don't have that in my head. When do people normally need to, that was very clear, thank you. But when do people normally have to pay their business rates bills by? Right.
So most businesses probably pay over 10 installments. So so a lot of businesses, Diana, would have already paid all of their business rates for this financial year, for 21-22, because the last instalment.
Oh, I see. We're retrospective. Sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, it's 20. Yeah.
Okay.
So most businesses, or many businesses, have already paid, so they will go into credit, and we'll transfer that onto next year's bill. Those businesses
actually, so I'm a year out, so I don't know if other people are with me. So I would say that is this year's bill. So if my business rates were generally £15,000, and you then apply a 10% rebate, if you like, on my last year's business rates, this year coming up, I'm going to pay the 15,000 less the 1,500 credit, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. If by this year you mean the one starting from April onwards, then absolutely right. Yeah. Sorry, I think we're just at cross purposes on the financial years.
Yeah, that's probably just me. I don't know, but I always think ahead, not if I paid something. I think it's really important that businesses understand what they've got to pay out in the future.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, it's so much about cash flow these days. Right, okay, so
we actually have a question from Marjan. If I can hand over to Marjan to ask her question. Just take yourself off mute.
Hello, good morning everybody. Can you hear me well? Yes. Hi David. Actually I've been chatting to Sarah, but I still got a little bit would like to have clarity. My office is not in Merton at the moment. So I got two questions. Previously, the first ARG grant, discretionary grant, I received it through Merton Council because I'm renting facilities in Merton. The second time around, I was excluded not because of that, but because I was receiving self-employment grants from the government. And apparently, I looked at the criteria on the website for discretionary grant. It says that home-based and mobile businesses. So I would like to know that for a business like me that rents facilities in Merton, but the office is in office is not registered in Merton. Have I fallen through the cracks so I can't apply for anything, or is there any way that because of the rented facility I can still apply for something?
No, if you rent a property in Merton, then you should.
Okay, Marjan, could you just put yourself on mute, because you've got a lot of I think you're in a cafe or something, aren't you? You've got a lot of background noise there. Go on.
Yeah, if you rent, so it sounds to me like you run your business from home, but you rent a facility, I don't know, an office or something like that in Merton.
That's right.
Is that right?
It's not an office, it's a swimming pool.
Oh, okay.
David, that was the reference I kind of made. Rent church halls. There's a lot of companies that operate through renting other people's premises to deliver their service, whether it's swimming classes or dance classes or whatever. There's a lot.
I need to look at that, and we'll come back to you, Marjan. Okay.
Shall I send an email to the email that Sarah gave, please?
Yeah, and we'll come back to you. That's fine.
These are the complexities, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that one responded to. Okay, anyone else got any other questions on this to David and Sarah while they're here with us?
Diana, just to say, I think it was last week, I wrote to every business in the borough.
Yes. Just
to detail the 3 different schemes. I gave a little information on each one, told them roughly when we were likely to be going live, keep an eye on our website. So every borough every business that pays business rates in the borough should have received some information already from the those ones that, as I said earlier, that we've targeted for Omicron, they would have received a separate communication from us as well. And I know you've put out comms for us, as have our communications team. But you're right, it's about getting the communication out to all the businesses so that they know that they're eligible for. Yeah.
So someone has just asked about the guideline for the application on the council website. It is all there, isn't it?
Yeah. So not for this one yet, but for the other 2 that I spoke about earlier. Yeah.
So I think the thing is because your applications are online, you have to sort of go through the application to work out what you need to kind of do. So
yeah.
that's something we all have to do, isn't it?
Yeah, but if there are any specific questions, just email the business rates grants email account that Sarah provided earlier.
That's lovely. Okay. Any other questions? Any other points anyone would like to make? Because if not, we will, I think, wrap up. And that will be really good because we've gained 20 minutes of our working day. So I hope people have found that useful. And I think, you know, the third grant that obviously has to have councillor approval because of the amount of over 4.7 million is the one that is a very general sort of application to those that pay business rates anyway. So that is certainly one to watch, I think, for. And the rest been very helpful, David and Sarah, in responding to those questions and really bringing light to some of the interpretations, I suppose, of what falls within which sectors. So yeah, and if anyone's got any further questions, then obviously I know that David and his team work very hard to respond directly to those. So please do that, and the dialogue will be open. So lovely. I'm going to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for attending this morning. Thank you to, in particular, to David and Sarah, and for other colleagues in the room. And we will be in touch and hope to see you very soon. So thank you, everyone. Take care.